Hi, I'm Prathu from FreeFinCal, and let's talk about Franklin India Prima Fund in this review. This fund was started on December 1st, 1993, so it just completed 25 years along with Franklin India Blue Chip Fund, and it's been one of the fantastic performers in the mid-cap space. So this is a presentation from a slide from the AMC presentation. It shows the large cap, which is the dark blue, the mid cap, which is the the meshed blue, and the light blue is the small cap asset allocation of the fund for the last 10 years. And you can notice that it's been mid cap heavy for most of the time, and its average allocation has been about 67%, at least in normal times, unless there's a 2008 kind of situation. So it's a mid cap focused fund. Of course, it was not exclusively a mid cap fund in the past, but now after the SEBI regulations, it has to have minimum 65% of mid cap stocks in its portfolio. But even after 25 years, it only has about 6,500 crores, probably because it does not have the kind of distribution channels like HDFC and ICICI via banks and the demat accounts and so on. Earlier, it used to be benchmarked to the CNX 500. I think somewhere down the line, it changed to the Nifty Free Float Mid Cap 100, as it was called, and then it's now, after the SEBI regulations, it's now going to be benchmarked to the NSE Mid Cap 150. So the top, so if you take the 500 stocks from the NSE, the top 100 will be called large caps. The middle 150 will be called mid caps, and the bottom 250 will be called small caps. So NSE Midcap 150 will be those middle 150 stocks. But it has always defined midcaps as any stock other than the top 100. So it's earlier it used to be a fund that will primarily invest in midcaps and small caps, but now it will be just a midcap fund. Of course, its small cap weights have been quite small, so you can't say that its past returns were because of small caps and so on. So it's quite fine. So let's get to the analysis. So as usual, we will be looking at the rolling return, which is in the top frame, and the rolling risk, which is in the bottom frame. So the rolling return means that we look at every possible 5-year period in the past, and there are 1,674 5-year periods from 1998 to 2019. If I compare the Franklin Fund, which is the Prima Fund, with the Nifty Midcap 150. Of course, the Nifty Midcap 150 is only been the benchmark for this fund for the last few months, but we will look at how it has performed against the Nifty Midcap 150 in the past. It gives you an idea of the future performance as well. In the bottom frame, we will look at the rolling risk. So for every one of those above 5-year periods, we will be looking at the volatility in the monthly returns. We look at the volatility in the monthly returns, and it's about 3,660 points. 3,360 points in each line. So, what does it tell you? Now, if you look at the top frame, the white line, which is the Franklin Fund, is kind of more or less in sync with the blue line. It doesn't beat it often. It has only bet it in the recent last few years, last 3-4 years. In the past, does not manage to beat the Nifty Midcap 150. But in terms of risk, it has been consistently lower risk or less volatile than the Nifty Midcap 150. This is over 5 years, and now let's look at the same over 10 years. Again, over 10 years, it has more or less been in sync with Nifty Midcap 150. Only in the last few years, it has managed to outperform that. But it has always been a fund that has been less volatile than the Nifty Midcap 150. So it's since we do not have a pure index fund as a choice to invest, we do have a couple of mid-cap ETFs, but we do not have a mid-cap index fund. Stay away from those mid-cap ETFs; they're not liquid. Since we do not have a pure index mid-cap ETF, I think what you see here, the performance is pretty okay. It's giving you mid-cap index-like returns at lower risk, and I think that's pretty fine. There's nothing big to complain there. Now let's look at the performance since 2004. So the pink line is on the top is Franklin Prima Fund. The white line is Nifty 50. The dark blue line is Nifty Mid Cap 150, the green line is Nifty Mid Cap 100, the past benchmark, and the red line, which you can barely see, is the Nifty 100. All of them are total returns indices. So you can see that from 2004, if you look at the 5-year returns, the fund has done quite well. It has even managed to beat the Nifty Mid Cap 150 in the last few years. That's actually quite good. Okay, you don't want a fund that has not bet the benchmark in the last few years, but has only bet the benchmark before that. This is just the opposite, and it's a good trend. It's not a problem. And you can see from the bottom panel, the rolling risk, the pink line is the lowest, which means that the volatility or the risk is the lowest of the Franklin Prima Fund. So even though it's a mid-cap fund, it has managed to offer a volatility lower than Nifty 50, which is fantastic, isn't it? And that's quite good. It's 5 years. And this is again over 10 years, the trend is more or less the same. Again, lower risk, and consistently the pink line is on the top. So the pink line is on the top in terms of returns, and the pink line is the bottom in terms of risk, which is what you would expect. So that's pretty good. What we will do next is to compare the Franklin Fund, the Prima Fund, with HDFC Mid-Cap Opportunities, which has got about 21,000 crores, and it's probably the most popular mid-cap fund, and deservedly so. And we'll also use another fund from this space, the L&T Mid-Cap, which is not as popular as HDFC Mid-Cap, but I think it's got a decent performance as well. So let's look at that. And that's over 7 years. And in this graph, you have the pink line is Franklin Prima Fund. The white line is HDFC Mid-Cap. The red line is L&T Mid-Cap. The green line is Nifty Mid-Cap 100, and the blue line is Nifty Mid-Cap 150. Now notice that the white line, the HDFC fund, has outperformed the Franklin Fund, which is the pink line, and the L&T fund has more or less been in sync with the Franklin Fund. But if you look at the risk, the HDFC fund, the HDFC Mid-Cap Opportunities, is probably as the lowest most of the time, but Franklin also is kind of, in the last few years, Franklin volatility has been less, but the volatility of the L&T Mid-Cap has been consistently higher. So that's a fund that I would not personally buy, because it's a volatile fund. It's volatile. There are volatile than its peers, and its return is not that high. So you're not, for the additional risk that you're taking, you're not getting that reward, at least with respect to HDFC Mid-Cap. So I would not touch L&T Mid-Cap, because you have Prima as an alternative, and of course HDFC Mid-Cap Opportunities. That's over 7 years. Again, over 10 years, you can see that clearly the white line, the HDFC fund, is above in terms of returns and lowest in terms of risk, but the Franklin comes second. The L&T Mid-Cap has given returns comparable to Franklin, but at a higher volatility. So that's the reason why I would not touch. So if you give me these three options, pick one. I would first of all say I will not choose L&T Mid-Cap. And between HDFC Mid-Cap Opportunities and Franklin Prima, I would say, look, HDFC is a fantastic fund, but it's got 21,000 crores. Tomorrow, if the market starts moving up consistently, again the AUM will start flowing in, and that fund probably will suffer because of the inflow. Not because of the high AUM per se, but because of the high inflow into the fund. So I would not start a new investment in HDFC Mid-Cap Opportunities. If I was already an investor, there's no problem. I would continue. But I would not start. If I'm going to look for a mid-cap fund and I'm given these three options, I will say no to L&T Mid-Cap. I will say HDFC is fantastic, but I'm a little worried about its large AUM and the possibility of it getting larger. So I would stick to Franklin Prima Fund, because it's only got about 6,500 crores. So that's the kind of choices that I would make. Of course, you could differ with me. So existing investors in Franklin Prima, please continue. It's a fantastic fund. You've got low volatility, and it's got decent returns. And I think in this space, in the mid-cap space, low volatility with performances, it's like gold. New investors looking for a mid-cap can also choose this fund instead of the HDFC fund, because it's quite popular and everybody is choosing that. You should have you should look for good returns, but away from the limelight. If you like that kind of investing, that's the way I would do it. The Franklin Prima Fund is an excellent candidate. L&T, which we have looked at, is not it's not desirable in my opinion because of its high volatility, relatively speaking, of course. But if you look at L&T on an absolute level with respect to the benchmarks, it does fine. But because there are peers with low volatility and better or at least as good performance, L&T mid cap does not make the cut in my opinion, but Franklin Prima, 25 years, it's been fantastic performance and it's a great performer. So I'll catch you in another video. I know there are many other funds that people want me to review. I will do it one by one. So please give me a little time. Many of you have asked me about Mirai Emerging Blue Chip. I think that's a fund which is close to lump sum investments. I think it's only open to SIP. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a great fund. I have reviewed it in the past, but if you want me to do it again, I will do it. But I think it's a great fund. You can have a look at that. So catch you in another video. Bye.